We're ready to roll. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the May meeting of the Open Space and Habitat Commission to order. First is, what, agenda? No, roll call. We are missing Christopher and Lindsay.
Yeah.
Do we know if they're planning on showing up?
I haven't heard anything,
Okay.
so, yeah, everyone else is here.
Okay, let's move on to the agenda. We have a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda.
Okay.
Wait, who did it?
Mark and Steve.
Steve GR, so I
Yeah.
didn't get you wrong.
Yeah.
Any discussion on the agenda? Any changes anyone wants to see? All in favor of passing the agenda? Say
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Agenda stands. Announcements. Oh, here's Chris.
Hello.
Tracy will turn it down.
I
It's
actually
officially
do not
tardy.
have, yeah, officially tardy.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. It only happens when you guys take a vote and have to explain why it's different than, anyway. I actually do not have any announcements.
No announcements.
No,
All right.
I
That's the
know.
first time in how many years that you haven't had
No,
any
it happens
announcements?
occasionally, but I don't.
How about from other commissioners? Any announcements or items on the agenda? Seeing none and no council liaison here currently, we will open.
Actually, I have one.
Oh,
All right.
the streak maintains.
The streak's maintained. The only thing I did want to mention was that, and I know this isn't ideal, but there's a possibility that we might have to have a meeting in July or August to talk about the Village Farms open space and habitat features.
Oh, boy.
So I'll send emails about it. I know people's schedules aren't, are different in the summer, and I get it, but, we'll do our best to try to get as many of you here as possible. We'll try to do my best, and again, it's not for sure, but it's possible. So I just wanted to get that on everybody's radar that it might happen.
What's the name of that again?
Village Farms.
Village Farms.
And it being summer with everyone's kind of travel schedule, is there any possibility of remotely joining the meeting for your
I can check on that. I'll check on that.
Okay. Oh, and Lindsay's here. Hey,
Well,
Lindsay.
okay, here we go.
All right.
Got the full crew.
Yes.
Would it be helpful for Tracy to know now if anyone doesn't know how, like, when they might be out of town?
You can email me. You
Okay.
can email me, yeah, because I'll make up a little table for myself to try to, because I also have to figure out the room with the owl and
Got it.
all of that, so yeah, I get everybody's at once. I'll send out an email about it if I think it's likely.
Okay.
Okay.
That was all.
And with that, we will open it up to public comment, which I'm assuming that we have a number of public commenters here.
I think I'm first up again.
Are we speaking now? I thought we were speaking when they.
Oh, should we speak now or?
This is for items not on the agenda.
Sorry.
Not on the agenda.
I'm sorry. We're on the agenda.
So everyone's here for the item that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So seeing no public comment, then we'll move on to the consent calendar. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar, which is the minutes from last month.
Motion to approve the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Any discussion, any corrections anyone saw?
No.
All in favor of passing the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I'll abstain, because I was absent.
It's allergies. No.
So we will now move on to the first of the two regular items on the calendar for this month. And that is going to be finally electing a new chair and vice chair for 2025, now that we're halfway through the year. I will preface by saying that I enjoy doing it. I'm happy to do it again. That being said, I am supportive of anyone that wants to have an opportunity to chair. I will support that person as well. And there's an added wrinkle that I am being termed out after next month's meeting. However, I put in for an exception to policy with council, and it looks like that there's at least a pretty good likelihood that that is going to pass, so that I'm pretty sure that I'll be around for the next 4 years on that. So I'll open it up to anyone that either has interest in someone else. But let's get into this.
Well, can an alternate have interest, or do you have to wait till I'm regular?
Would you wait till you're regular?
That's okay.
Anyone?
Don't all talk at once. Down in my
Are
notes.
you still interested in running for chair again, or?
I'd be happy to be chair again. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that other people have the opportunity if they want to do it as well.
Sounds good.
And who's terming out? Potentially you?
I would be too, but I reapplied.
Okay, and then.
And Lindsay, you're terming out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think the only one for sure terming out would be Lindsay, and assuming Patrick's gets extended, yeah.
Tracy, is there a way to confirm that I actually submitted my intent to do another year of commission work? I'm pretty sure I did, but
You could probably check your emails. I think they all emailed us. And then I just replied to that, and they just used my previous application.
Do you happen to know if you replied to me? I don't remember getting a reply from you, but did you just reply directly to the clerk?
that's what I'm asking. Like, is there a way to know that?
Well, I can check.
I know that I submitted my Form 700, so that's kind of weird that I would do that and not the other thing.
Okay,
Ah,
I can ask.
Okay, just,
I would have thought you would have gotten
Lots going on
another
right
email.
you're not being on.
If I remember, I think my
No, no,
700
it's just
email was
that, you
different
have to
than
renew
the
each year.
extended.
Yeah, it's different,
Yeah.
No.
yeah.
You don't have to renew each year, right?
you
Pardon
don't?
me?
He's not been on
No,
for 4 years.
No, is your term up?
No, you just went on for a year.
No, you don't have to renew
Yeah.
every year, only.
I don't have to renew.
No.
I'm an alternate, so I only had a 1 year time frame, so that's
Yeah.
why I have to do it.
But,
All right, I'm
but
still
if
learning
not,
what
you're
this is
on
all
for
about.
4 years, and then they let you know.
Oh, okay,
You would
okay.
have gotten like several emails
Yeah.
from Zoe, like,
Well, I got
or
threatening
Lisa.
emails about Form 700.
Well, you would have
Yes,
gotten
yes.
direct emails about this,
So you're in.
Okay.
How many terms can,
so,
2 terms, so 8 years total?
So Ramiro, you renewed? Because we
I
said.
did,
Okay.
yes, I should be here another 4 years.
Are you interested in any of the roles?
I, not at this moment, I prefer to wait it out and
Other-
have the best interest of the
Other
patient.
things to deal with.
Yeah, full-time law students, a little. Yeah.
Sarah, what about you? You've been on this for a while.
I'm not interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm still learning, I'm still not, I'm green still, so.
I'm interested, but I can't get my vote right now.
Okay, well.
Christina, since we're going around. Also not interested. Thank you.
well, I suppose though, if Lindsay leaves, then you'll be bumped up.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping to get a full-time after this one, but I don't know how the process works because I didn't know who was fully staying or leaving.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, if everybody stays, then obviously I'll remain the alternate. But the thing is, we have to decide now. I don't think we
Don't
can
be
do
tied.
that.
Don't be
But there's
tied.
no guarantee.
I mean, I mean, it's for sure, right, right, I mean, she really did not, reapply. So there'll be a position, which means then you'll bump up to regular and the vacancy will be the alternate. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, either way, I'm interested if it's possible.
The only catch I see is that Lindsay will still be on the commission for
Right
the
now.
June meeting, right?
Well, for June, so
And,
if,
yeah.
if we could
You'll-
make it effective as of September or something.
That's true.
If you become for good, you'll have opportunity within the next 4 years.
How often do we do it
Every year,
every year?
yeah.
Yeah, every year we
So
do.
this would just be for
Theoretically
the
in
end.
January.
This would just be for
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
June,
June.
if we have a summer meeting, September, October, yeah, through the end of the year.
And this
All
is
right.
for chair and vice chair,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So there's There are 2 leadership opportunities.
All right.
I'm so interested in either one.
All right.
You, Mark?
I'm willing to do vice chair, but I'm just happy to be a regular commission member.
Okay.
So,
Could we briefly go over what the responsibilities of each
well,
position?
Well, I mean, do you wanna take a crack at
Yeah, I
the
mean, you run the
chair?
meetings, obviously, as chair, and you, work with Tracy to set the agenda. That's, for the most part, it, every once in a while, you'll have a presentation to city council to make, or other kind of one-off activities. Those are the main ones, and vice chair basically is like vice president, you're kind of sitting around waiting for something to happen to the chair.
so if the chair cannot be there that
Then
day,
they just-
then
But they're
you
not
run the
doing anything.
meeting.
Yeah, usually the vice chair, yeah, but like, this is, people do, like, occasionally, like, a developer team or something will reach out to the chair to talk to them about a proposal or whatever, you know what I mean? So there's a little of that, sometimes, yeah, there's speaking before the city council.
I spent a lot of time the last 2 years working with the Village Farms developers, for example, trying to help them get an open space element that would pass muster in my mind. So there's things like that. People will reach out to you.
But mostly it's running the meeting and, keeping the unrulies in line. Just kidding.
It's a tough job.
All right.
Yeah, just wanted to know.
So does anyone have a motion of nominating a chair, a vice chair, or both, including yourself?
So I would be in favor of nominating whoever wants to be chair the most, and Mark, if you want to be vice chair. I just want to get, do you want to run as chair if I nominated you right now?
I'm happy to do it, but like I said, if other people want to do it, I'm happy to support them in doing it. But it is something that I enjoy doing.
And I guess I will also add, we will have, some of this, the general plan, like we all went to the, we will have the general plan responsibilities.
Yes.
Maybe not too many before the end of the year. So maybe this year, maybe not so much, but probably next year more. So that's just something to think about too.
Yeah, general plan and Village Farm is going to be 2 big things that we want to deal with over the next year.
Patrick has sort of been at the head of dealing with the open space element, so I feel like his leadership would be valuable at this stage. So,
I agree with that.
so that's a positive.
I'm happy to do it.
I would like to nominate Patrick, and I would like to nominate also Christopher as vice chair. Patrick is chair, if that sounds good. That is my nomination, if that sounds good.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table with Patrick and Christopher being chair and vice chair, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, folks.
Clarification?
Yeah.
So you will become vice chair as of
September.
September?
Yeah.
Or
I
a summer
would-
meeting if it occurs.
Yeah,
As of July.
all July.
As of July.
As of July 1st.
Yeah, I think the first step is
Alright.
for me to get to the regular full-time position,
Alright.
and then we'll go from there, but
That sounds fine.
So you're
Should
still
we have-
vice.
Should we have Mark, should we do a motion to have Mark be vice chair for this interim period?
Oh, sure.
I will assume.
And I'm gonna warn you that I'm gonna be gone next month, so you're gonna actually be running the meeting.
Okay, I'll do that.
I make a motion for Mark to continue as vice chair for 1 additional month.
I second that motion.
Any
All
discussion on that? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
yeah, and then Tracy, right now, since we have a quorum, well, and then plus my tardiness, I don't, like, unlike last month, I was part of the quorum, and therefore I was able to actually
vote.
me vote, but now in this situation, I'm not able to vote. Is that
Tonight.
correct?
Tonight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because everybody's here,
Okay.
yes.
But you're still good
You
with
can
it?
comment, you just
Yeah.
can't vote.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it
That's right.
still,
That's how I
what-
understand
is
it.
it still what you would like?
What do you mean?
That, what we described, is it still what you would like?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm happy.
Alright.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining me, Chris.
Okay,
Yeah,
well
of
done,
course.
well done.
Okay, good. So we are just moving right along, and so we're going on to the,
Can I just ask one,
Oh,
who
yeah.
seconded that? I missed it.
I did.
Christina, okay, got it.
Christina.
okay, moving on to the second of our main items is the Wild Horse Conservation Easement. Tracy, do you wanna?
Well, it's a task.
Or a task?
Yeah.
Well, so like we talked about, I mean, I don't have a lot to say other than, that, you know, when we went over the process,
Mm-hmm.
remember when we I think, was that last meeting? I think it was
Yeah.
last meeting. So this is the first, this item isn't to really dive into the easement or talk about provisions of the easement or talk about past development proposals or anything like that. It's really to decide, if you want a task, you want something like that in June, what it would be, like what exactly is it that you want, that you're interested in, looking at, or a task that either requires you guys to do research or staff to do research or something. I don't know what it is. So this is more to talk about what the task would be, not so much to dive into the actual topic itself, because that's not on the agenda, so we don't wanna like violate the Brown Act that way. That's not on the agenda. It's more to talk about like what is it that the commission wants to either take an action on or research or some kind of work item that the commission might want to do. Again, whatever you guys decide, then I have to make a recommendation to the city council about it before, and then that's going to determine whether it's, you know, as again, we walk through kind of what the kind of criteria are about, like, is it within your scope? Will it, is it, you know, basically, is it, you know, is it gonna interfere with some other work the commission's doing? Is it related to some existing project or not? What's the timeline, that kind of thing. Those are kind of some of the things like that are on the agenda for you guys to think about. So it's really trying to refine exactly what this thing is, that you may or may not want to do. Yeah. So I just want to make sure everybody's careful to not kind of venture into more of the getting too much in the weeds about the actual topic, because that's not on the agenda. Yes.
So I know I missed last meeting, but I read the minutes, and I read the email, whoever here sent it, so thank you for that. If we want more context, especially for folks who are here to talk about it, are we able to get that? Which would dive into the details of the issue that's being raised, because for me, trying to refine what the task the commission might want to take on is going to be driven by what they're concerned about, specifically. So I guess, are we allowed to do that? Without like, can we hear from them, but without?
Well, they for sure
Commenting
can
on
talk during public
Yeah,
comment.
they're all gonna be public commenting on it before we discuss it.
Oh, before we said, oh,
Yes,
sorry, I
yes.
thought it was.
Yeah, they can talk, yeah, right, well, they can do that.
Okay.
So you can hear from them before.
Okay.
But I guess, right, like, for example, I didn't prepare like, oh, here's the history of the Wild Horse,
Yeah.
whole
Yes.
development history. You know, I didn't do that, you know.
Right.
But that's what we could ask as part of the item for next week.
Yeah,
Right.
that's precisely what I was just about to ask. I'd like a history,
Right.
timeline of this
And
issue.
That would be the item that we're asking for a future meeting. Is exactly that.
And
Can I also add that I would like to see the development proposals?
Exactly,
Because none of them are available on the web?
yes.
But this should,
Well, because they're, don't
Withdrawn,
exist.
right?
They've,
But it's part of the history.
they've been retired,
Well,
Right.
right, they were withdrawn.
right.
I would like to see what they were proposing.
it's a PRA request.
That would be a public information.
But it was,
So
it
then I'll make
was,
one. I
Yeah,
want to see it.
no.
Okay,
It
guys,
was a-
hang on a second, we're getting into the topic before we're,
Okay.
Yeah,
No,
we're already-
I'm saying I want to be able to see the proposals. I don't want to talk about the proposals. I want to see them.
But we're supposed to.
but we're not gonna see them before we have public comment, no matter what.
No, I'm
No,
not
no,
asking you
no,
to see them now.
not
I want
now.
to see them at the next meeting.
That's the discussion after the public comment,
Okay,
as part of
so
this
we
whole
stop.
thing of what we actually want the
Okay,
item
so-
to be.
Okay, so I thought we were talking about that, but if we're not, we'll stop.
I'm confused.
Yes, I'm confused.
Okay.
What are, when,
What are we doing
what
now?
are we talking about now
Nothing.
before
We
public
wait.
comment?
Nothing.
We're actually not. We're
Okay.
just, we're taking clarifying, we're not actually talking
Okay.
about
Okay.
anything.
Okay, so it's just, yes,
So
Then I think
what
it
is
would
the
be-
item that we're discussing right now?
We are trying to decide what, if there is an item that we wanna put on a future agenda around this topic of the wild horse conservation easement.
But first, we need to hear.
Should we hear-
public
Okay, first we need to hear from public comment, and then
And then we
we'll
can
take that into consideration, and amongst
And-
us, we will decide, if there's something tangible, specific that we want, to have as an item, either informational or an action item on a future agenda.
Okay.
all I can say at this time is that it seems to me that there is concern in the community, they're coming to us, so I think we should make it an item.
We're not getting into that yet, we need to hear from them first,
Alright.
you're jumping into the
Alright.
item before we do public comment. So,
Alright, sorry,
unless there's a clarifying question,
I would,
just about what we're doing, which is a clarifying question, we need to hear from
Okay.
the public, and then we can
Alright.
discuss it.
Right, Chair.
Is everyone at least reasonably clear on what our task is in front of us tonight?
Mhm.
And I would just add, and again, this, we're all going through this new process together.
Yeah.
So something that's not, if you were gonna do your own research on something, that would not require me to write a staff report to the city council, right, because you're doing the work, not me, right? If you did your own research on a topic, however, if you then did that research and then came back to kind of talk about it and figure, that actually would be like an item, right? Because you're actually doing, but you can go off and spend some time doing research whenever you want, really. That's not something that would be one of these tasks that I have to write a staff report to the city council, okay? Educational or informational presentations where you're not taking an action or doing anything like that doesn't trigger it either, okay? So I just wanna note that. You guys, I know I sent this to you guys, at the last meeting when we were talking about the process. So the task that you're talking about is gonna probably qualify, because number one, it's one that the council's not requested. It's one that staff would not otherwise be bringing forward to you. I would not be bringing it forward to you. When you wanna take an action or make a recommendation on a new matter that's not already assigned, which this would be, or when the commission needs to use city resources. Okay, so that's kind of in this realm where this is falling. So that's why we're trying to figure out
okay,
what it is you want. If you want it now, you want it later, what, you know, again, like what is it? I don't know, I don't know, this was a commission initiated thing.
Yeah, then anything you do research, my understanding, it would need to be brought back though, especially if it's a be an item later on, as far as like Brown
If you
Act
did
rules.
do,
Yeah,
right, if you did
you
do
would
your
have to
research and
disclose
then you
that.
wanted to like come and to have an action based on that research, right, then that would be something, then you'd have to develop, I would have to like, do a staff report for that, to see if the city council wanted the commission to be spending time doing that.
all right.
Super clear?
Clear as mud.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds that we should go to public comment to say anything, all right.
Okay, so, we are ready for public comment, I think. Yes.
Okay. Apologies, because I jumped the gun before, this is for you.
Thank
If you
you.
could pass these out, because this might help with what Steve was asking about. I copied each. My name is Eileen Stamets. I was a planning commissioner, City of Davis. I also served on the general plan update, land use committee, and the subsequent housing element committee. But I also served on the leadership campaign for Measure O years ago and Measure J. So I'm familiar with both of those things. So basically what you're being asked for is permission from the council to define the scope of what discussing this conservation easement preservation for Wild Horse. Now, I also was one of the neighborhood representatives back in the 90s when Wild Horse was being planned. That was before Measure J. That was one of the reasons we did Measure J after this, because there was no Measure J back then. So I was one of the neighborhood reps around Wild Horse, and one of the things that came up that occurred to me, and I wasn't that savvy on land use yet, I asked Jeff Lux, who was the planning director, I said, what would prevent the golf course from being developed? And what he said was actually nothing except a conservation easement. And I said, well, that's a starting point for what the neighbors want. And so he said, well, they're not likely to agree to it, but I'll ask. And sure enough, God bless America, the developers were cooperative, because I said it's a starting point. And they didn't argue. So the point was, I remember during that process of planning Wild Horse, there were things we asked for, including like we wanted it to have a habitat-friendly design. So it has an Audubon principled design. So this was very important because we wanted to protect, as much habitat as possible, make this as green as possible. So this was, I reiterated during the process to make sure, to Jeff, I said, this language needs to be as iron-proof, as bulletproof as possible, because, there's always this nervousness, is the city gonna get this right? And he kept reassuring me, this is not it's a non-issue. The city will hold this conservation easement, and so we will make sure it gets protected. So what I've handed out is I wrote an op-ed piece about this whole history, and that shows you what was presented last year, and they've withdrawn it because the city told them to have some community meetings. They had at least 2 community meetings, which were well attended, and there was massive opposition, and not just from the neighbors, but from environmentalists, including myself and others that were, seeing what was going on. Because what's important about this is that not only the promise that the city made, but the fact that overturning a conservation easement, as you all know, is into perpetuity. Into perpetuity is into perpetuity. And so think about the consequences if this developer is allowed to overturn this. That will be not only a strike against the city of Davis because it'll set a precedent for other conservation easements. This city would be responsible for other conservation easements being challenged and potentially overturned. So that's what's really important. Now, why is this dragged on so long? No question. This needs to be, so the other article that I gave you was from just to let you know what the intent of the developer was that he bought the golf course, the owner of the golf course bought it in 2017. Within a year and a half, he was applying to do 60 condos on the project. Now, I caught wind of this, and I went to the city and I said, hey, what's going on here? Because this is like the first bite of the apple. He's making it sound like it's just a little bit, and it's like, I'm saying no. A little bit is the first in a series. So fortunately, the city gave him that feedback, told him what the fees were, and he went away, but we didn't know it was going to be temporary. So he comes back a couple of years later with this monstrosity, which is like basically wiping out the whole northern part of the project above, I think it's above the creek. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the bottom line is we are appealing, and we first appreciate the commission for agendizing this because you guys are gone, you have a break after June, so it's really important that we apply. And Tracy, thank you so much for getting this on the agenda. Bless your heart for doing that, because we were very stressed about this, time sensitive, to try to get this appeal from you guys, defining the scope, to the council, so that in June you can have the full discussion. I'll happy to give you more information then, because I know I'm only supposed to have a certain amount of time now. But I'm happy to answer any questions, because I know the history on this pretty fluently. And it's really frustrating to see that the developer has been so persistent, and that we know how hard it is to get conservation easements, right? So the idea of this being overturned is kind of outrageous. And we really, really are depending on you guys to help with making sure the city just needs to say no. And the fact that that hasn't happened, the problem with that is that that's encouraging the developer. So the developer is gonna keep on pursuing this until you guys and the city says, we're done with this subject. So, any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'm happy getting at the meeting or after the meeting, whatever.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Okay, number 2, is that you?
It's me, I guess. My name is Sharon Monteith. I've lived in Davis, well, I went to school in Davis from 78 to 82, and I've lived in Davis since 2001. Lived all that time in the Wild Horse area and have walked miles around Wild Horse Golf Course, enjoying the nature. And I'm basically gonna reiterate what Eileen said. My concern is that this was, the conservation easement was voted on by Davis voters in 1995 as, you know, a promise. And it's voted to be in perpetuity. And I'm concerned about the precedent that would be set if that is reneged on. So I could talk for hours about the nature. You know, I volunteer at the Raptor Center and, you know, Yellow Basin Foundation, so I could talk about the nature and the basic, you know, that it saved me hours at the psychiatrist. It's my mental health to walk out there. But, you know, my big concern is the precedent that it would set if this was gone back on. And thank you for listening to all of this.
Great, thank you.
That's me.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. My name is Karen Shaw, and except for 5 years, I've been a resident of Davis since 1972. And I'm only 20 years old. I returned to golf in 2009 when we became empty nesters. The majority of my 170 to 200 rounds of golf a year are played at Wild Horse, so this affects me quite a bit. Wild Horse is the only public 18-hole championship golf course in Davis, and I'm here to advocate for the support of the conservation easement that encompasses 165 acres of the Wild Horse Golf Course. This property was subject of an application for development called North Covell Creek, which was withdrawn last summer. This application was actually the second development plan, and we anticipate that the golf course will soon become the subject of the third application. Please note that there are multiple buyers interested in purchasing the golf course for a golf course, but the owner has passed on these opportunities so far. It's also good to note, speaking to the owner, the golf course is operating in the black. That was our first thought, so it's not having money problems. Instead, the owner's development team stated in their 2004 withdrawal letter that they continue to believe that this is a logical and appropriate location to provide housing, which substantiates information from reliable sources that another proposal is imminent. The 1994 Wild Horse Development Plan was supported by a city-wide vote in 1995, which included the approval of the conservation easement for a golf course. The City of Davis holds the 1998 deed of conservation easement for the Wild Horse Golf Course. Therefore, I request that the conservation easement be subject of commission-initiated tasks for your June 2nd meeting. The 2024 application for development included a misguided proposal to exchange for land or funds to the city to remove 75 acres from the conservation easement. An easement exchange is a tool of the 1965 California Land Conservation Act, the Williamson Act. And that exchange tool was added to that act in 1998. However, in the conservation deed, which the city holds, Civil Code Section 815 is referenced prominently. There are important differences between these two. Civil Code Section 815 encourages the voluntary conveyance of conservation easements to preserve land, its natural, scenic, ag, historical, forestry, and in this case, open space condition. These conservation easements are legally binding agreements that restrict land use and are perpetual in duration and allows landowners to voluntarily protect their land while retaining ownership. It is broader than the Williamson Act, covering various types of land beyond agriculture. I hope I am preaching to the choir here on this, but the Williamson Act provides landowner enter into contracts with the local government to restrict land use to agriculture or comparable open space using a rolling 10-year term, and provides property tax reductions based on the land's actual use rather than its market value. In summary, the Williamson Act is primarily focused on ag land preservation through tax incentives, while Civil Code 815 provides a broader framework for land conservation through perpetual conservation easements that stay with the land, not with the landowners. This golf course is on its 4th owner, I believe.
Sorry to interrupt, but you're at time, so do you have
Okay.
a wrap up that you wanna do?
No,
A quick
that's good.
wrap up? Okay,
That's good.
thank you.
I didn't hear the little timer.
Oh, she started it late. I was, looking at it on my clock here.
I'm Russ Helmsley. Thank you for serving up. Did you say your name again? Russ Helmsley. Singing around, I have little voice issues. I'd like to see the Wild Horse Conservation Easement be the subject of a commission-initiated task for the June 2nd meeting, guided by the proceedings of this May 5th meeting. Overturning the Wild Horse Conservation Easement conflicts with core objectives of the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan adopted by the city just over 2 years ago. We're talking about a wildlife conservation easement at designated parkland. The easement prohibits any commercial, residential, or industrial use or activity on the easement area in perpetuity. Citizens like Eileen here negotiated the easement back in the early 90s, and it was clear to all developers, the city, and the public that it was to be permanent. It was approved by voters in 1995, and the city stood by it in 2019 when there was another development proposal. But strong opposition from Davis citizens, environmental attorneys, and a recreational policy organization to the proposal. If the city reneges on their promise, it would be a serious violation of trust, harmful to the city's legacy, and it would outrageously overturn the public's 1995 vote. And there will be lawsuits, which we don't need. City leaders made the assertion that this conservation easement is to be open space, even if the golf course fails. Civil Code 815 protects this easement in perpetuity. The city has the ability and responsibility to stand up for it, just as it did in 2019. Overturning the easement would set terrible precedents with repercussions all over California. The legal precedent, courts and local governments around the state will point to the broken easement as justification to weaken their easements. It could be like a domino thing. And for developers, once they see that an easement like this can be undone, they're gonna aggressively pursue protected lands all over the state. Developers are very resilient. Overturning the easement would weaken land use planning tools. Planners would struggle to justify protections on other parcels, and relentless developers will keep seeking loopholes. At very least, a Measure J vote should be a backstop for developing that area. In the end, I believe it's important as a city to remember who we are. Davis played an important role in the formation of the world's celebration of Earth Day. That is a proud legacy, but what once inspired others all over the world can just become that which is barely even remembered. So just a reminder that the city is just like with people. It's easy to let the best of ourselves slip away.
Thank you.
I really want to thank you for hearing our comments for the second time, and maybe hopefully a third time if we get on the agenda in June. But this just really deeply impacts all of us as citizens of Davis, and especially the neighbors who live in this impacted area. And so we just thank you for hearing our concerns today. My name is Gail Berry, and my family and I live in the Wild Forest neighborhood, and I've also spent my life advocating and working in the resource conservation, wildlife habitat, and conservation arenas, as well as being a partner in a family farming operation. So today I just want to highlight 3 comments that are really important to me. First, permanent conservation easements, those we put into perpetuity, are a matter of legal and public trust, and really the credibility of any city's open space commission. And in this city, we feel this is really at stake. While maybe the lawyers and developers will fight and argue over wording and clauses, the intent and promise to the citizens of Davis is clear on this particular parcel. It was protected as an easement for all time, and that is clear without a doubt. And we feel that it's its best and highest use. Should this Audubon designed golf course fail, we think that we know that there are remedies to keep that in open space, and the city hopefully will be a partner in that. So many in this conservation profession who I've talked to over the last several months have also talked to me about how we're getting better at writing conservation easements, all the legal things that go into it. But just because we didn't have all the legally tested things back in 1995 in other areas where it was written, it's still a valid intent to keep this in open space and as easement. Second, as I said last meeting, not all easements are created equal. This is a unique property. The linkages with the ag wildlife buffer, the existing wildlife calling this habitat their home, and the wildlife corridor that moves through there, linking the surrounding properties, and the access to water is unparalleled. It's already occupied by multiple species that still roam wild and free, not relying on backyard bird feeders to exist. Not only the turkeys that Davis loves and tolerates, but recently quail have joined raptors and amphibians and many other species. Many of the neighbors say it's been 25 years since we've seen quail over there. Third, I implore you to keep this open space and this conservation easement in this goal. I think that the community members in this panel are united and aligned in mission and vision. And so we, as several said, there's been widespread attention called to this easement and golfing members around the state. So in closing, we request that this be one of the subjects of the commission initiated task for the June 2nd meeting, guided by the proceedings of this meeting. We thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
And then, if you don't mind starting the timer after you got these, not right now. Thank you. We have time to speak for 3 minutes.
Give them a stack. Take one. They can take it.
Yeah, there you go. I'm having a hard time getting them apart. Okay, so the important thing is that many of the links to the history and so forth that you're looking for are here. Okay, the document I sent you has the links in there. Okay. All right. My name is Margie Longo, and thank you very much for putting this on the agenda for today. This process is important in order to formally recognize and proactively address the pattern of requests to remove land from this conservation easement. The city has never extinguished a conservation easement, nor should it ever extinguish a conservation easement. This principle is fundamental to our community's commitment to preserving open spaces. It is critical that the Open Space Program and Commission take a position that they reject any proposal to extinguish or amend any part of the 164-acre Wild Horse Conservation Easement for development. In this case in particular, the citizens of Davis were promised by the city to uphold the Wild Horse Conservation Easement into perpetuity. This promise needs to be honored to maintain the trust and confidence of the public in the Commission's ability to safeguard our open spaces. The deed of conservation easement should not be treated like a contract that can easily be changed. Moreover, the Wild Horse Conservation Easement holds immense value, not only for its riparian habitat, wildlife corridor, and view corridor, but also for its recreational benefits as an 18-hole championship-length golf course, public golf course, I should mention. The citizens of Davis voted to approve the development agreement, which included the Wild Horse Conservation Easement. This democratic decision in 1995 reflects the community's commitment to preserving this land. The election material stated, a conservation easement protects it as open space permanently. Also, city leaders asserted in the planning commission meetings that this area is to remain open space even if the golf course fails. As a result of these efforts, the Wild Horse Conservation Easement is protected under California Civil Code 815 into perpetuity. Therefore, a Measure JRD vote or referendum should not be required now to protect this land when the next proposal arrives, even if it's considered as a backstop. It is critical that the City of Davis does not allow the overturning of the Wild Horse Conservation Easement because this would threaten other conservation easements. It would be a precedent-setting loss of riparian habitat, wildlife corridor, view corridor, and recreational value to the public. It is for these fundamental reasons that there is strong opposition to any alteration of the Wild Horse Conservation Easement from Davis citizens, conservation attorneys, and a statewide recreational policy organization. We have brought this issue to the Open Space Commission because of its charge to monitor open space issues according to the 2001 and 2007 general plans. Moreover, this commission will advise the City Council on matters related to open space and habitat, including wildlife habitat, and public access to open space and increased public input. Therefore, we respectfully request the following 4 commission-initiated tasks for the June 2nd, 2025 meeting. 1. The commission needs to be given background for the purpose of being brought up to date on this open space issue. They can do this by formally reviewing the 2 development proposals that were submitted in 2018 and 2024 in the context of the entire history of the Wild Horse Conservation Easement. The withdrawal letter of the 2024 development proposal leaves the door open for the golf course owner to submit yet another development application. It is critical that the commission consider the impacts of wildlife habitat, and public access to open space of these 2 development proposals for the purpose of understanding the impacts subsequent proposals could have on this land and public trust of the Open Space Commission. 3, public comments on the issue need to be reviewed because they contain valuable information. 4, we feel that it would be important for the commission to prepare a letter to the Davis City Council containing the commission's concerns and stances and policy suggestions of how and why the Wild Horse Conservation Easement needs to be protected. Thank you very much. We believe this issue is urgent because we anticipate another application from the golf course owner to be submitted soon. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Okay.
Close public comment?
Closing public comment, yep. And opening it up to commissioners for thoughts, reactions, ideas.
Can I say a couple, just?
Yeah.
I suppose.
I just want to say a couple things just as a framework here.
Okay.
Just to clarify, if it's not already obvious, so there isn't a development proposal right now, okay, number 1. And this commission and even the City Council can't take an action that binds a future City Council, okay? So even if the commission took an action now, before there's a proposal on the table, and the City Council did the same thing, that doesn't tie the hands of a future City Council for doing something different. So that's just something to note. One of the things, one of the things that is, from a staff's perspective, we try not to do too much work on anything related to an actual project, because of course, we want the developer paying for that, not the city. Okay, so, usually when a proposal is submitted, there's also a contract that reimburses the city for their time, and city attorney time and staff time and everything like that, that we spend trying to deal with their project, no matter what it is. okay, they pay for that, because again, that's their proposal, they're gonna pay for whatever staff time is involved, correct? So, we try not to work on something until there's a proposal from a developer and we get reimbursed for the time that we're spending, including city attorney time. So I just wanted to just note a couple things. I'm not talking at all about the merits of anything that was said, you know, or anything like that. These are just sort of practicalities of, you know, work, money, budget. And just that also, there's not a, there's not a question of, so you could argue, you know, definitely could argue fairness on both sides. I totally understand. I guess I'm just making the point that a proposal, there's a due process, not so much here, because this proposal would require, it's not like they can just tomorrow submit a proposal. They don't have as-right development rights, because they would have to do a rezoning and they'd have to get a general plan amendment, right? So, however, there is the issue of, you know, are they getting a fair hearing or not, correct? We have no idea what's going to be submitted. Nothing may ever be submitted. Something might, nothing might, or something totally different from the past proposals might. We have no idea. So there's that issue of having a fair hearing about what the heck the proposal would be, okay? So I just want to bring that up as something as well. So again, not opining on any of the merits of what was said and all of that, because, you know, I totally hear what's being said, but again, I'm just giving a little bit of a context there about some of the other factors to consider in this period of time that we're in, because again, there is no proposal. But
my question is, there were two previous proposals, 2018 and 2024. Did you do any work on that?
on the I did a little on the 18 and some on the 24, yes.
Can we get that?
Well, I don't have those. I mean, I did work on them, just again.
Staff report?
No, I didn't do a staff report.
Okay.
No, because again, neither one of them got that far.
No.
Yeah.
I did not do a staff report. I didn't even bring them to the commission. Okay, they didn't even come to the commission.
Never landed here. Wow.
No, never came here.
So, okay.
Because they didn't get that far.
They didn't get that far
in the process.
I guess my question would be, why did they stop? Was it because there's a lot of public comments coming in, or was it funding?
I mean, I wasn't in their heads, but I mean, I know from the 2024 one, they had some public meetings, there was a lot of backlash, a lot of opposition, and they decided that they would reassess. And yeah, they did say, yeah, we'll maybe come back when we reassess. They haven't yet. So, you know, I don't, you know.
Yeah.
What was the premise? They must have had a premise for you to work on the 18 and the 24 proposals. What was the premise?
I'm not sure I understand what you mean.
Why would they want to do this? It's a protected parcel legally. They know it's protected. Votes have been taken, it's in the general plan. Why would someone say, I want to convert?
Because they're developers and they seek money.
So the golf course owner
ultimately
is a developer,
Okay,
is that
wait,
what you're saying?
no,
No, it's
not that
usually,
I know of. So here,
Who's the developer?
the property owner, so again, we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here. And I haven't done all of my research either, so this is my best knowledge, okay? So forgive me if some of it is wrong, but this is my best knowledge, is that the current property owner bought the golf course, like, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And and it was in the paper and all of that, to run a golf course. And then, I don't know, you know, I've gotten calls about, you know, well, I'm not gonna say that. Anyway, anyway, but, you know, the golf industry, you know, it's not, at least again, according to them, I don't know
Yeah.
if there have been proposals or not, I've never seen of any offers to buy the golf course, but the premise
Yeah.
was, hey, we're not making money, we have to do something. That was even the premise from the 2018. Again, this is the premise, I'm not saying it's true, this is
We need to
the
understand
justification.
Where are they
Was
coming from?
that they were not making enough money
So
to run a
that's-
full 18, they had to go down to 9. They wanted to do a clubhouse, reduce to 9, do the clubhouse, do some improvements on the clubhouse, make it more like a wedding venue type thingy, have 9 holes instead of the 18. And so it was you know, the premise was, hey, look, we can't operate it full 18 holes anymore, okay? So I'm just saying that's what it was.
Okay,
So,
all right,
Lindsay, looks like.
yeah.
I guess I would, like, that doesn't seem necessarily, I mean, okay, the agenda item is to decide if we want to define a task, a scope of task
yes.
for the commission, a commission-led task. And I guess I'm just trying to understand if this commission has received, it even understands the development proposal process the city goes through and its consideration, like its criteria. Like is that like a planning, like probably the overview that the planning commission receives on how it considers.
You mean like all the steps that a proposal goes through to get approved?
Not like, like an overview and like where conservation easements fit into that proposal, like criteria and when this commission engages in that process, right? Like I think we've seen some of those proposals once they get to a certain stage, but just to understand like when this commission would engage in that kind of activity, or is this really an issue of a different commission?
Like when would a commission actually hear?
Because this
when would this commission hear the
this commission and what? Yeah, because that seems like there's potentially some education of the commission of like, because you're saying, oh, this, like all the things that you just explained, like staff don't work on these issues until they get to a certain point or it's paid by, like all of that sort of background. Seems like that might be useful, like that could be a task to
understand the development project.
Yeah, the process and where considerations of designated land use types fit into that process, things that are relevant to this commission. But otherwise, like the details of a development proposal, just like beyond having a proposal submitted to the city, like that, it's my understanding this commission doesn't get involved in.
No, you do.
Those.
Well, no, it
until
depends.
it's.
Well, I did
Well,
before.
not necessarily. I mean, it, you know, again, like for example, Bretton Woods, you know, I mean, this commission actually had input into that a couple times, you know, like, you know, even before the baseline project features are even, so I mean, it sort of depends, you know, on, you know, that one, the commission also usually on a development project, this commission will provide input into the open space and habitat features. That's what the summer meeting, if we do Village Farms, that's what it would be on the open space and habitat features of the project. So for example, if this was a project, you know, obviously, you know, this would be one of the issues because it is one of the open space or habitat issues. So this would be one of the issues. There could be others. I mean, I have no idea, but I'm just saying that's usually when the project sort of features are kind of, I mean, it's not like they're finalized because again, they're still looking for input, but that's when the commission, not just this one, but the other ones would provide the feedback on whatever the particular topic is.
It just seems like if this commission wants to scope a task, it would be more around understanding those processes, those touch points for when this commission's engagement would be valuable to provide, like its role in providing recommendations to the city council and what it's useful for supporting staff in what roles to carry out when, at what stages, because I feel like we're getting like a lot of information about something's coming and there's concerns in the public, and it's great that this is the space to hear
It
this.
is already open, I mean, it is already a conservation easement, which is in your purview.
Right, but like, just that
Yeah.
this is an agenda item, but what is most useful for the
This
city?
is a commission initiated task, okay, so
So-
this is not a staff thing.
Right, but
So I'm
like,
just saying, I'm not gonna, I mean, I guess, you know,
what I'm hearing is it's not really, like,
well, I guess I just
looking
want,
for another
well,
task
I just,
to
no,
take
no,
on.
I'm not
Because-
saying that, I'm not saying that, I'm just trying to provide a little bit of
Yes.
a few of the other little practicalities and things to think about, you know, like, we can't, you know, this commission and even this city council cannot pass a resolution that then ties the hands of a future city council, okay?
Right.
That's number one.
Yes.
So, that can't happen. So, and like I said, you know, the city doesn't like to, in fact, when that project was withdrawn, the city attorney just immediately stopped researching and stopped working on it, right? Because again, if we're not having a developer reimbursing us, we're not gonna expend.
So I'd like to, so we have right now an idea on the table from you, Lindsay, to do more of, a review of the actual, project process, is that
well,
correct?
not a review,
Honestly, I would
but
love to
just
give a
a,
presentation on
just
that.
Right?
an education of
Yeah.
like, of the points, not
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
because review makes it sound like
Oh, no, I just meant
like
an
a-
overview, okay.
Yeah, an overview, if that's a way
No.
to sort of be prepared
Mhm.
if there's an issue that comes to the commission, but it sounds like at present there's not.
Right, so I wanna make sure other people, so I know Christopher, you've been trying to say something for a while now.
Yeah, could I understand what Lindsay's asking for, which is pretty much like an overview, so we all have a better understanding moving
Right.
forward? And I would just be like, if we need a task, well, I would love to give that presentation. I've been a planner for the last 7 years, currently still am. So I understand the development process very clearly. You know, I go to commissions like this, present projects, even this Thursday, I'll be out at a different community presenting a project. So if you guys want like a good overview on what it looks like, you know, starting from pre-application all the ways to planning commission or supervisors, you know, I could give that. And I've also done private, so I've seen what it looks like, you know, on the private side before the application gets submitted to the county or the city.
Okay, good, so we have that on the table, I wanna go around and make sure, I kinda wanna get the
Yeah.
different things that
Yeah.
people might be interested in on the table, and we can kinda pick and choose
Yes.
what, if any of those, so.
I had,
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
might as well just keep going around.
okay, yeah, I had one comment, in relation to the fact that our commission or the current city council can't really have a resolution that would,
Tie
work
the
moving
ends.
forward.
Yeah.
Is there anything, related to the general plan that could be written in that might address some of these concerns?
Well, I think one thing you could do, or what we could do, is start going through some of the general plan policies to see like where there's leverage. Because like you said, there's not an application submitted, so we can't really be making any action or trying to set something up for when that may happen too. You know, what if application comes in and it's actually like good, it's not for development of housing, you know? We don't know. But in order to prepare ourselves, that when it takes staff time would be for us to do our own research, go through the open space policies that the city has, and maybe even look at some of these easements that are currently on the site and get familiar with those. Because later down the road, when there is a project, we, I think, would be considered the recommendation body, and we can provide recommendations to the planning commission or board of supervisors, whether they take them or not. You know, that's their decision, but we could provide at least some educated recommendations based off what is submitted.
So, Sarah, is that where you were going? Do you have other thoughts?
Not necessarily, because that's pretty much basing our activity on like what's already in the general plan, et cetera, which is fine, which is like good educational. But I guess what I'm wondering is if these people's concerns about like the precedent this might set. I think there's just like, oh, okay, these developments have been proposed.
Yeah.
And there's just, it's like, why even? Had they been proposed, et cetera? And I'm just wondering whether or not we do anything about that. But it seems like anything that we talk about here, like if there's like a resolution that we should never, you know, have a development on this property or whatever, it doesn't really seem to hold any, or like have teeth.
No.
But could it have teeth if it was something that was that was implemented within the general plan, which is something that we're currently working on?
Yeah.
That's my question.
And that's would be like a 5-10 year update process, so I don't
Yeah.
know if it would even be relevant if the application was submitted tomorrow.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying like,
Right.
that would be
Okay.
one way that this could kind of be addressed in a more, in a way that has teeth. But that's my question.
Yes.
I mean, you could, but I mean, general plans are plans. They're not necessarily
Their vision document.
binding, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're not, I mean, they're plans, and yeah, you know, the development, I mean, that's one of the one of the steps is to say, okay, does this project as proposed, is it consistent with the general plan, right? But it doesn't, but then, you know, sometimes there are little like, oh, okay, well, it's not exact, but okay, you give a little here, we take a little here, there's a little, you know, it's not.
So there's
like a
still
binding-
not legally.
Right, it's not like a binding document.
And it could still be kind of negotiated with, depending
A
on
little,
who
I
the
mean,
council is
I
and
don't, you
whatever.
know, again, like, yeah, projects usually, that's the point of the general plan, is to try to broadcast out like, hey, this is where the community wants, this is the community's vision, and so, yeah, it would be good if your proposal sort of fit within this vision, right? Or otherwise you're gonna have trouble getting your project through the process.
Are we going around? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So I'm not raising my hand, I just keep recording.
To Tracy's point, so as to not violate the due process rights of the developer, they have the right to propose what they want. It's not, you know, it's whether or not that's allowed, that's the question. You know, we should look into these. I think we should have some sort of like legal research. I understand that the city doesn't want to, or can't, you know, spend money just on that, but perhaps even working with the developer to explain how this doesn't violate, how it may or may not violate, you know, property law or other sorts of law. I very briefly and preliminarily spoke to my property law professor about this, and he said this might implicate other areas of law, such as election law, such as local government law. There might be something where, you know, the government through like a vote has like a higher obligation to respect that vote, even if the deed allows for transfer of that. That is not public, this is not legal advice, this is just kind of what I kind of understand. Even if that deed allows for the modification or transfer of the easement itself, if it's through a vote, that might be like a filter over the property law surrounding that, you know, standalone. And so I would like to sort of hear, you know, whether or not it implicates those other areas of law. I would like for the developer to do that research, and so for them to expend that money and explain how they are not violating or how they are violating or whatever, just an analysis of whether or not it violates other areas of law.
I don't know that we can really ask that though if there's no proposal on the table.
That's true, but yeah, I mean, just questions to also be thinking about.
Yeah, to that point, like, is that already in the development proposal process to make sure that they point out whether their development is potentially?
It's
Well,
not,
no,
and so.
that was my question,
Yeah.
like the potential test, to understand those elements and
Yeah.
that
Well,
could be.
that, what you're talking about there was kind of what the city attorney had started to do. You know, when the last one, the 2024 proposal,
Yeah.
right? To kind of look at, okay, yeah, the referendum, what the provisions of, you know, what exactly, where did this, you know, all of that from a legal perspective, right? But then they stopped.
That might completely stop, like the whole, like, you know,
Yeah.
whether or not the deed says that there's, you know, permission to, like, you know, allow the easement to be modified or whatever. Like, there might be something that completely stops this whole, you know, considerations of what the deed exactly says or not. So I would just like to hear more input on that, and I understand that the attorney stopped doing it because there's no development.
Yeah.
But if there is another one, you know, I guess it should resume, or if there are ways for it to resume without a development, I'd like for that to happen as well. I don't know.
But it's not gonna happen by June, right? It's not gonna happen by our next meeting.
Very well, from what we understand, it's any day now.
Yeah, but then we'll
Yeah.
see.
But then we'll see it, and then
Greco,
over to you.
Okay, so, first of all, the nexus, why us? They're proposing to remove a lot of habitat. That's our business here on our table. So if they're seeking a 9-hole reduction in that golf course.
They were.
Yeah, they're,
no matter what it is.
If they were.
That they want to do, that is why we are involved. We need to protect that, that's our interest. As a commission, that's our public responsibility. So, what I wanna know is what's the difference between this easement, this deed, and the ones that are being drafted now? We've heard that this is old, it doesn't have all the other clauses that the newer ones have. Maybe we need to update this with the newer clauses that give us greater protection over our easements that we as a city have agreed to have. That's something that's legal research, and I think this is independent of this issue in Wild Horse. We need to know that for all the easements that we are making recommendations to the council for. If we don't really have a good idea of how that works and how it's weak, we're not doing a good job. We need to know more about this. This is a clarion call for us to be more up to date on how these easements work and how they're kept in effect. I mean, we're witnessing lawlessness at the national level right now, and I don't want to see it at the local level. This is what it seems like to me. The other thing is, in clause 13.3 in the deed, it's called amendment. And why is the grantee suddenly able to do whatever it wants with this easement? I think that's probably one of the flaws in this document, that somehow it's assumed that the grantor is the property owner, the developer, the grantee is the city. And suddenly the city has, under clause 13.3, the ability to do whatever they want with it. And that's what's driving these development proposals. I think this is a weak deed, and the legal nature of this needs to be researched. If we're gonna be in business, if we're gonna have any habitat on that map into the future, we have to protect ourselves. We have to educate ourselves. We have to be ahead of the ball. We can't just be reactionary. They'll be back over for the next amendment, for the next proposal, the next proposal. They're here awaiting a third proposal. And we're just getting to this? You know, I really think we need, not staff time, but maybe city attorney time to tell us, to come in here and work with us about what are effective easements today and what is the difference with this particular one, and why are they coming back over and over again like they just, you know, they feel like they have, they might have, you know, some kind of, I'm gonna do a little bit of conjecture, a little, there might be something that the developer knows that we don't know, and that's driving them. And all we can do is protect ourselves and our business. This is our business. So that, I'm gonna leave it there.
Excuse me, I said something because I would be relevant to what you just said. Regarding amendments, we've researched this. Number one, we have a boatload of information that would save you all a lot of time, that you just need to read, that we've already done. Margie's done all the groundwork on this, and a lot of it's referenced in the letter she submitted with just links, okay? But amendments, we researched, and they are only supposed to happen for conservation easements when it improves the conservation easement. It is not intended for developing conservation easements. So it's not a weakness. It's where this is what you might not understand yet, but I'm trying to we research that, because we knew that that's where they might be trying to go. And as it turns out, conservation easements are not to be amended unless they're approving the conservation easement. And I guess the other question is like, what if an application?
Okay, we need to keep hearing from the other commissioners here. But feel free to send information to our commission, to Tracy, it'll get to us in written. So Christina, over to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay within the scope of what we might want to task on. So I'm reading between the lines of what Tracy said about council staff time and paying that, and right to a fair hearing. So I think in June, I mean, while getting time with an attorney would be great, I bet you anything council's gonna reject that.
Yeah.
So I think we should put it on the agenda for June, but instead of having staff work on it at all, we invite our friends to present what they've already done lots of work on, maybe even more than the attorneys have, because they're more closer to it, more passionate. So getting more background, as folks have mentioned, on the issue, seeing the past proposals, withdrawal letters, public comments, these are all things somebody said during their public comment. And while maybe we won't suggest or like vote on a resolution or whatnot, since it won't bind anything anyways, maybe it's something we could consider at next meeting of just like an open letter to have it on record and file of our, whatever conclusion we come to after we learn more next meeting, whether it's concern, neutrality, whatever, about that particular easement, since it's been repeatedly proposed on and likely happening again, just so it's on record. So even if there is another commission, even if there is another council, that's on record as to outlining what the problems in history has been in one succinct place. That might be part of a development package that is likely gonna come down the line anyway. So that's my suggestion for next.
So it's like a memorialization?
Yeah, and well, like, if the commission changes, it's not binding either, but at least then the follow-up commission sees that in the record, and they have like the download and what previous commissioners and folks who have public thought about the issue.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it might save the city money to invest in preliminary research rather than pay for the expenses of lawsuits. So I think that preventative action might be good right now, and preliminary analysis of these things might be in the city's financial interests as well. It says assuming lawsuits entail.
Yeah, are you set, Christine?
Yeah.
Okay. Mark, over to you.
Personally, I'm not sure we want to revisit all the details of previous development proposal, because they were subtracted within, not even going forward. I'm mostly concerned, like Steve was saying, about what is the value of the easement that we as a commission are doing and spending money from the citizens of Davis when we buy easements. What's the value of them in perpetuity? Is that something that's for real or not? And I think that's the main concern. And I think putting too much focus on this, I think, from my understanding, lawyers can discuss all that and find a little something by reading, this way or that way, that they can argue about, and we don't need to know about that at this point, because, it's something that may happen if it's really, happening. But knowing all the arguments that somebody would do to, try to undo this thing, is not, to me, the most important thing. The most important thing is that we are doing a series of easements. We are hearing that some people think that easements are not good. Are they good? How good are they? I think there's more that kind of concern that we need to get some kind of an understanding within the whole. I'm also with Christopher on understanding that within the whole planning system, I'm sure we're not the only one in California that are faced with this kind of thing. And I'm more concerned about that in more general terms, not saying that I don't hear the concern of the public, but it seems like until we hear about another proposal that would, actually be discussed by the planning commission and possibly by us, there's not too much that we can do, preemptively. I think being preemptive seems like it's not useful. So that's my point of view there.
Great, thanks, Mark. I think that I'm kind of on the same boat, that I appreciate all the work that's gone into this. I don't want to dive into details on past proposals. If there is a future proposal, which there may or may not be, it could be completely different than what we've seen, and we'll deal with that if it comes. But I am very interested in the state of this conservation easement and the other conservation easements that the city owns. And I would like to specifically ask council to give us time with the city's legal staff to give us a briefing on what the different flavors of easements actually are that we have, and specifically this one, but more generally, and to understand if there are some properties out there that have weaknesses. If there's just a whole kind of variety of different easements, if we have a kind of standard boilerplate. And then I think also going through the project process like you're outlining. So maybe for next month, if you would be interested in taking us through that, that'd be good. I don't know if we can expect to have any response from council and legal staff by next month or not, but
yeah, I'm not sure. I will say just on that point about our other easements, I mean, this one and then the one that we have, the very first one the city ever did it's tiny, North Davis Farms, yes, that one, only those two are just ones that we own ourselves. All the other ones are co-held with the land trust. We use the land trust template, so it's either the Solano Land Trust or the Yolo Land Trust. It's their template, it's not ours, because again, they are the ones that have the responsibility to monitor the easement. They're the ones that go out every year with their clipboard and they say, section blah, 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 and they check and they send me the report every year saying, yes, this easement is compliant, blah, blah, blah. They're the ones that monitor it, so it's their template. So it's based on like your standard land trust, conservation easement, language, permitted uses, permitted blah, 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 right? Solano has a different one than YOLO, but they're similar, very similar. We're a co-holder, and there are various reasons for that. Main one is that we don't want to be doing the monitoring. Land Trust does the monitoring. The second reason is, if you have two holders, it's a lot harder to change. And so, and also those, all of them are farmland. This is the only one that we have on a golf course. And, one question I have, yes, it's a conservation easement, and the way it's written is it's an open space conservation easement, but the property is zoned parks. So that's a little odd. Okay, so everything about this is very one-off and unique, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's extremely different from all our other easements, okay, which are ag easements or Swainson Hawk. We do have a couple that have Swainson Hawk overlays, but, and then the weird habitat one on North Davis Farms. But, that one is another one-off, those two. But I guess what I'm saying is, I personally have no concern about our other easements, and this is very different, extremely different from all our other ones. Okay, for what I just said, the reasons I just said.
Okay, then.
Could it be strengthened is a question.
Well, so on that, it takes two to tango.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we would have to have them sign it, which is highly unlikely.
But transfer of that easement doesn't require the grantor, by the way, if there was ever an interest in transferring it to your land trust.
Well, but they would never.
They probably never would.
They would not want a golf course.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have to, if it was farmland, but it's not farmland. They would only be, and the Habitat Conservancy also would not be interested in this. Because again, it's a golf course. And so that, again, makes it extremely unique. We don't have one on the El Macero golf course. We don't even have one on our own golf course.
Yes.
So, and they're, again, zone Parks and Rec. So again, that's another little wrinkle in all of this that I'm like, okay, well, when it comes down to it, like, okay, what is this thing? And also, who, is it Parks and Rec? It's, is it a park? Because it's zoned Parks and Rec, right? So, anyway, I just wanted to make that comment about all our other easements, and there's no risk of terminating our other easements. I mean, again, because they're all the land trust would never do that. They would never do it. So
Are you making an argument
helpful.
for or against asking for attorney?
Well,
time?
I'm just giving you that information. Is
Yeah.
that again?
To what?
To not do it.
To not ask for attorney time?
Yeah, because I think it's clear now that if you look at the open space map and it's all coded with, who owns what.
Yeah.
Yeah, this golf course is a freaky burger. It's like the only one that's not YOLO Land Trust.
It's not
a
ag land.
private park that people pay to go to.
Yeah.
Where else do we have one of those?
I still would like to get a legal kind of assessment of what this easement means, what the language in there means.
But it seems like if there was a proposed, like they started to go down that route when there was a proposal,
then the work would be
you
done.
do get the legal, is that correct?
Well, that was what was happening.
Yeah.
That was what was happening. And then it was stopped because it was withdrawn, and so then
And
it's
then-
like,
And
all
that
right,
would
whatever, there's no.
need to be paid for.
And then
They pay for it.
Right.
from what Ramiro was saying is that there's a hint that the fact that there was a vote is another level of.
That would completely stop this discussion about whether or not the easement is allowed, it's transferable, whatever. This easement pertains only to the city of Davis, to my understanding, it doesn't just.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
a good legal issue to
well,
ask
I
the
mean,
attorney.
my question would just simply be, does the fact that this was voted on, preclude, the city from, or does that instill a higher public obligation into the city so as to preclude them from transferring the easement, even if the deed allows for transfer of the easement?
It would be overturning the vote of the public.
Yeah, but legally, what's.
Well, so let me just say, okay, the referendum was to uphold the agreement, right?
Yes.
And yes, which has this conservation easement in it, which has the language that is in the conservation
Yes.
easement. Which has this language, the amendment language.
No.
Well, it has this language.
No. The development agreement just has a paragraph that says there will be a.
But wasn't this attached?
No,
As an
that was
exhibit?
done in 98. The development agreement was done in 95. And the vote was in 95.
Okay, well then
Yeah,
it was
no,
the
it's-
language in the development agreement, right?
Not that, no.
Not this,
Not
but,
that,
okay,
no.
so then I
It just
stand
says-
corrected. I thought this was an
It just
exhibit.
says- No, it just says, in the development agreement just says there will be a conservation easement over
Yeah.
this land. And it also included, the zoning, and the zoning said perpetual conservation easement.
Yeah.
So that was all in the development agreement.
So that's the
Codified.
question for the city attorney. The question is, if the referendum referring to the easement, there's an easement referred to in the referendum, right?
Yes.
Is this binding to the referendum?
Well,
Or
or
does that
is it,
preclude
what
the
does that
city
mean?
from,
And
Actually-
does it preclude?
the
Because
city from amending or transferring it because there is like a higher
these
public
are
obligation?
really legitimate questions, even if they never come back with another proposal. They're legitimate
And
questions.
it wouldn't violate due process because it's just research. We're not actually taking, and making an action on the table that precludes the developer from ever asking or bringing the things to the table.
And it's a fairly straightforward, easy question if the lawyer really knows the issue deeply. It should be 5 minutes. Oh, yeah, or
Have you
no.
ever had an attorney answer anything?
No, you're dreaming, it's like. The answer is, it depends.
That probably will be the answer, no, that will be the answer.
You wanna jump across the table.
I guess I was just, I'd say, Christopher, would your presentation cover any elements of any of these similar types of issues of?
So I was thinking about doing a brief overview of the planning process. If you guys want me to dive into entitlements, I could do that. I'm very familiar with the rezone, general plan amendments, development agreements. But I also don't want to throw too much information at you guys in one presentation. But of course, I'll always be there to answer any questions.
I think,
But there are specifics you want me to incorporate in the presentation that we could discuss now.
I think if there were to be a presentation, it should be really specific to the city of Davis process, not just general. Otherwise, I think, because the questions that have been discussed are about the role, the value and role of conservation easements, how they're considered in development proposal processes that the city undertakes. So I think it's for reviews. And at what point these legal analyses occur or not? Are they before or after this commission engages? I think those are the types of questions that I've heard come up in the conversation, so.
Yeah.
I think it's just like, is that even worth, what I'm struggling with, is that even worthwhile at this point where there's not
Well, I mean,
proposals on the table, if it's not general enough to cover like an education that brings everyone to a place of shared understanding when a proposal.
I mean, being a recommendation body such as this commission, I think it is a good idea for everybody to have a general understanding of how the process works. Whether or not we need to go into like the needs of details regarding the easements and stuff, because that might be a little bit more specific to the city of Davis on how they handle those. But I know where to find that information if needed.
The city used to do a training.
Yeah.
Do you remember that? There was a sequel one, and then there used to be, there definitely was a sequel training that they never finished. Yeah, and then I thought they also did one. I mean, maybe I mean I could even ask Zoe, like, because I don't recall having one lately, and because we do, we actually have, we have Village Farms, we have Palomino.
Yes.
Well, Palomino is kind of over. And we have,
All the
Willow
possible.
Grove now, it used to be Shriners, Willow Grove.
Yes.
Those are actual proposals that this commission will actually be hearing probably soon-ish. So, that would be relevant. I mean, I could ask, because I seem to recall that there were these trainings.
I feel like now that you mention it, they did a step by step.
Yeah, and they were step by step, and there was a sequel one, and then there was sort of a process one about like, here's the thing, and I don't know, it hasn't been one in a while.
But also, I think Christopher, your offer is very interesting, but also we need to remember, we're not the Planning Commission, we're the Open Space Commission, and our purview is different than the Planning Commission. So not that we don't need to understand anything, but we need to understand some aspects better than others, right?
No, totally. I think having a good understanding when we could actually start talking about a project or trying to make recommendations before like trying to jump to conclusions, kind of like how we were doing earlier in the meeting. I felt like we didn't really have understanding on what we were acting on, and that's just because we're not on that part of the process yet. And so to clarify some of those, I think would be a good idea. And then
This is a weird. So what we're doing tonight has nothing to do with the development process, really?
No.
It has something to do with this new, city council, directed process for commission initiated tasks. And this, we've never done it before, which is part of the reason why we're doing it, and clunky, because, we're trying to figure out how to do it, right? We haven't really done it. So but this is sort of separate, what we're doing tonight, from what you're talking about, honestly. You know what I mean? Because this is a separate little Davis specific thing that we're doing here.
Mhm. And
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I suggest that next meeting, we at least, so not to put a request on staff time, attorney time, which I'm sure city council will deny right off the bat, but that we do at least invite our friends to come back and do their presentation of whatever information they have, to at least open the floor to them to share what their concerns are in more detail, even if there's not a development proposal active right now on the table. But I feel like outreach, community engagement is one of the pillars of our commission, and this is the first time I've ever seen anyone at a meeting, so I feel like if there's enough people that care this much about the issue, even if there's not a proposal on the table right now, at least we could offer them the space to share the details and concerns in more detail and not have staff do any additional work, and therefore the city doesn't have to expend any funds on that. That's my proposal.
Yeah, response to that, Steve.
Is that a motion?
I would,
No?
Or, okay.
There's
not
more
yet.
thoughts.
I was just, reflecting on, I gave a presentation to this commission, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, when you first started. Can we allocate, presentation time instead of 2 minutes? Per speaker, can we have like an hour block or a half an hour block that we can allocate to them to give us the information that we're seeking here?
Well, I mean,
remember I
it
was
could be an
given, like,
agenda
at least-
item.
Yeah, we make an
I mean, right now,
agenda.
they only have 3
Now,
minutes
do we have
because
to
it was
get
public.
permission? No, because
Well,
we don't
so,
need permission to have
again,
them speak to us.
If you're not going to, so again, if it's educational, informational presentation,
Yeah,
you're
that's
not
what it
gonna
would be.
take an action.
Right.
If it's just gonna be educational, informational
Just
presentation,
education.
it would not be a task.
Okay,
So then we
And we
can,
could put it on the agenda.
we can put them on the agenda for whatever chunk of time we decide and go from there.
And we would, so we
Knows
wouldn't need to get city council approval.
That's
for
the way I
that.
understand
You
this.
don't.
It says, what is not an action-oriented commission initiated task? Okay, commissions proceed without council review action.
Yeah.
One of the bullets is educational, informational presentation. But that would mean though, that you couldn't take an action after the
We
presentation.
would just
Yep.
hear
You
it
just
and not
hear
be
it.
in.
It's just
There's
informational.
There's nothing to take action on.
So it just
It's not
I'm
means,
just
proposed.
saying, I'm just
So,
saying. That's
Yeah,
what
no,
Great.
that's a great clarification, but I really wanna know more.
Yeah.
And so if you guys can come back and give us those details, especially about amendments,
And you may have an application by then.
we might.
So the point
Yeah.
is, we can help
We'll
save
be
you a
ready.
lot of time, save staff a bunch of time, we can bring
Yep.
hard copies, we can send you, and just get you up to speed
But-
with what it's
Yeah.
taken hundreds of hours for us to research.
but it's clear if there's even an application, then we will not be able to do
No.
anything
No,
with
no,
the
the point is
application.
you would have more information to look
Right.
at
We'd
it,
be
then,
all
right?
around.
And save that time for you.
Question of clarification, if there is if an application, comes in, will that stop us completely, our tracks from doing this presentation for you?
I don't think so.
Can we
No,
mention
no.
anything about the application if it's posted at that point on the web?
It's
Their web- city
informational.
website?
No, it's
Okay.
informational.
Okay.
I mean, especially if it's posted, then it's like totally public information.
Just give us more time.
It'll be even more relevant.
I make a motion to invite our friends back next meeting in June to give us an informational, educational presentation and share all their materials about this topic.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that. Although, I don't know if we should say it. No offense, but our friends. Like,
Okay,
in the
and you're not gonna be there either, right?
Just for like the due process element.
Okay, and that was,
The fairness element. I mean,
Yeah.
again, we have to think about fairness here.
So
Yes.
invite the public commenters back to
Mm-hmm.
present information.
yes.
That's why I was just
I'll
saying
call the
something
developer.
about-
But,
I was just gonna say-
no, but
I like,
Sorry,
I
but I
like to
understand.
have friends.
Yeah,
but-
see how
Yeah.
it shows up.
For the legal.
Can you say it one more time?
I make a
It's not
motion
personal. It's
to invite
due
the
process.
public commenters today, which I believe are all residents near Wild Horse easement, to provide an educational presentation
We're all not all residents here.
Don't worry about where they live.
Public comment chairs.
We're all from Davis.
Educational presentation about their research about the wild horse easement
And their concerns about,
and their
and the
concerns.
concerns about,
Development or
Development.
overturn.
and particular amendments, yes.
And point of question, how long are we allowed to do a PowerPoint?
Yeah,
We haven't figured that out yet, but do we have a second on that language, Lindsay?
Yeah, is that okay, Christine? Okay, yeah, second.
So do we have a clear,
Well, it kind of trailed off there at the end.
yeah,
So, motion
Yes.
to invite the public commenters back to the June meeting for a informational, educational presentation about the wild horse conservation easement and their
Concerns about
concerns
development.
about development.
yes.
Okay, period, right?
And I thought there were potential and potential amendments.
That's
because-
concerns.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
okay,
covered by
so-
concerns.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that was, and then Lindsay was second.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that we can really determine right now how much time to allocate. I think it just kind of depends on how many items we're gonna have on the agenda.
There's not really a limit on regular agenda items, other than, you know, right, it does depend on what else,
There's
but
gonna be discussion.
there's not like a time, but I mean, you know, we don't wanna sit here for 3 hours
No.
talking about it, so try to, you know, be
How about
efficient.
an hour?
You know, we all kind of, everybody gets tired after a certain amount of time
Yes.
too, you know, it's
45
not,
minutes.
But
so,
I think
you
an
know.
hour would be max.
An hour including
Q&A
questions?
and all that, yeah. Well, you guys.
Does that sound reasonable?
Oh, well, that,
You
that's
tell us.
Yeah.
Well,
But
but
that's
that's,
an hour.
an hour is totally doable, but yeah, 3 would be,
No.
We'll wear out before the hour's out. It's hard to, but we don't have to race
no
for
time
3
limit.
minutes.
Try to shoot for 45 minutes and at least 15 minutes of questions.
That sounds great.
That sounds good?
Sounds good. That's good.
I would just like to say too that I read through the letter that SSL law firm LLP sent. I think that inviting their comments as well would be incredibly valuable, and if they want to provide, you know, on the go sort of legal analysis, I think it'd be amazing, especially, you know, centering their analysis around whether or not, you know, election law or local government law precludes the city and instills some sort of like higher obligation to fulfill the easement, even if there are terms that allow for transfer of easement.
Well, like you, we have to pay for that.
yeah, I was gonna say, they would have to
I
do
know.
that.
Oh, I thought it was like a friendly
We
letter.
paid $6,000 for that.
Oh, really?
For their analysis, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's not cheap, and, yeah, so we're kind of.
That's why you're becoming an attorney, right?
Yeah.
He's still at the beginning.
That was the discount rate, that was the nonprofit rate they gave us, yeah, so.
Okay, well, we
All
have
right.
a motion and a second on the table.
Okay,
Do we have any more discussion on this motion? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll
All
see you
right.
guys in June.
PowerPoint is okay,
I think that would help, actually, if we
You might-
help move along.
You might need to email it ahead of time.
You're gonna, I'll have to, yeah, if you could, if it had to be in the packet.
okay.
Well, because it has to be, because
Right,
it's, you know, Marana, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
so if you're presenting something, I'll need it ahead of time to put it in the packet.
Okay.
Was
Right,
it
because then everybody gets it equally, right? So,
2-week noticing, right?
no, just, no.
No?
So basically, I would need it like the Friday,
Yeah.
Friday morning.
This is, you know, just when she
I
sends out
usually post,
the agenda in the packet.
Friday
I
morning.
think you're gonna tell me I have to do a PowerPoint, so that's why
Okay.
So it'd be, it'd be great if you could,
Yeah, you're just gonna tell me how to do it.
it'd be great if you could get it to me like Thursday before Monday.
Okay.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, my
Thank
confusion.
you.
It's just helpful.
Thanks for all your work on the issue.
I think 'cause on our side, we just submit
Yeah.
everything for that.
Oh, wow, we made the magic happen.
Well, I'm amazed.
with where you have to find this.
And I'll tell you, I am relieved that I don't have to write a staff report.
No, but it,
No,
no, but it makes sense, it makes sense.
So we're not quite finished here, because we still have one idea on the table, which is this, discussion of the planning and project process. Are we still thinking that that's something that we want?
If you guys want 2 presentations in one night,
That might be a lot.
yeah, we could postpone it.
Why don't we postpone that till?
I'd
Yeah,
also like to check in with Zoe about it.
Yeah,
yeah,
just make sure we don't already have that put
See
together.
what other trainings, because when I joined the commission, there were several like
Yeah.
yes,
overview presentations
There
of
were.
different processes, and
Yes,
so
there were.
if that's already covered, or if I know
But
I'm turning out.
There's
but
also the
it might
AEP
be
website too, they usually have really good trainings on there, videos.
Yeah, but I do kind of agree that like, I mean, our process is a little bit different, and so, you know, just kind of getting familiar, because we have this, commission structure that's sort of woven into the approvals process, and so kind of a better understanding how the commission input is woven into the City of Davis process, I think would be helpful, and that's kind of like
Yes.
what that training
yes.
partly touched on, but like I kind of want to check in with Zoe and
That-
remind myself, because I know there were trainings, and also it's just dawning on me now, like, of course, we probably, several commissions should have that, because we do have actual development processes, I mean, projects that are in the pipeline right now.
Yes, yes,
So,
Yeah, I don't recall getting
I
a
think
training.
that'd be
Yeah.
very useful.
right,
And there was that update, like there, at one point we reviewed that there's big tables and the criteria, and I thought that was to update that process as well.
Oh, yeah,
And
oh, yeah,
we
we
had a
did go
meeting
over
over
that
at the
thing.
senior center,
yeah.
there was only
We had that
2
massive,
members. And I thought that was all to
I
like
remember that.
update.
we had that
the
massive
templates for
table
that
with different
process.
colors of each, like,
It was in our packet. It's on the agenda. It's one of the handouts.
no, that's
no,
just
not
the
this one,
calendar.
this was,
Oh, not-
You know what
that's
I'm
not-
talking
yeah,
about.
yeah. And we were talking about like a scoring system,
Right.
what kind of
Oh,
scoring
you know what
system.
that was? Okay, all right. That was, which I'm not even sure, that was, a city council subcommittee, that was the matrix
Yes.
about how to,
The matrix.
the scoring points about how, like, if we got, say, three
Oh, like the
proposals coming in at
priority.
once, prioritizing.
Yes, that's right, that's right.
That was different,
Okay,
and I'm not even, I
is that even a thing
haven't heard
anymore?
about that in a while.
So
I'm
it's,
not quite sure what
And I
about
was
that.
like the whole.
it's been
all
put in the
the
parking
so
lot.
funny. I was
Yeah,
just
but
like-
it did touch on the process, yes, it
Yeah,
did.
okay.
But let me check about, because there might even be like a little PowerPoint thing that I can send you guys, or let me talk to Zoe about that.
Yeah,
So maybe consider for future agenda. I
But
don't know.
Yeah, something to act on right now.
if Zoe wanted to, refresh us all, that would probably be the best move.
Yeah, I'll ask her about that. Okay.
Okay.
I have a question for Tracy. The baseball fields down there in South Davis, that's a is that?
Baseball fields,
The-
play fields?
The play field, like.
Play fields, but no, it's a city park. Playfields Park?
Right, this one, right?
Nope.
Oh, no, this one.
Yeah,
Is this zone park?
yeah, I'm sure it is. It's
So
a
that's
park.
another private park.
No, it's city park.
City.
But I can't just walk in and,
Yes, you can.
I can just walk in and use the ball
Yes.
field?
It's a city park.
Anytime I wanna use the ball
Well,
field?
not
Well, I
anytime.
mean,
Well, I mean,
why not? Is there-
It's like right in the middle of a game. I'm gonna have a picnic
Right,
here.
yeah, it's a game.
you know, you might have to take your turn.
Gotta get online.
Maybe
I
there's
mean,
other.
like, some of our city parks,
Use them.
especially like where the active play fields are, like the
Yeah.
soccer fields.
Yeah.
That we have user agreements with like AYSO and, so there are user agreements where they kind of control that area during certain times, right, so they can have their games. So it's
Yeah.
like not a public park like Central Park where you can just go and sit down in the middle of the field and eat your lunch or something, right? So but it's still a public park.
Still a public park.
Yeah.
Whereas, Wild Horse Golf Course
It's
is
private.
not. It's private.
It's not.
You
Right.
can't walk.
No,
No, you can't.
You have to be a
Walk
member,
around it.
you have
and
to pay.
that was part of
Walk around
the
it.
agreement. that
Yeah, no,
was
I
there.
got that.
There was no public
Clear
access.
message, okay, yeah.
But it's considered a public
But
golf
it's-
course.
It's public,
Well, I've
yes,
Right.
it's a public golf course because anybody can
Can join.
join, not only people that have paid
Or
a
live
lot of
somewhere
money
like- or yeah.
to be part of the.
I would suggest that these are questions for next month, and I don't want to go through this entire item again that we just closed.
Yes,
I
Madam Chair.
Not next month.
What's that?
September.
It's exactly that.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so we're on to subcommittee liaison. Exciting thing on Lower Peter Creek Coordinating Committee is that now we have in place monitoring for salmon that counts them on a real-time basis. And so we can correlate salmon coming up numbers with pulse flows coming down and actually start to get a much better understanding of how to release water to attract the salmon up, how well that's working. So that we had a terrible run this year, and so but we have one data point now. So we don't know a lot, but moving into the future, we will start experimenting with different ways of doing the releases, seeing what the salmon response is on a day-to-day basis, and be much more scientifically rigorous and have the opportunity to really understand the salmon system there much better. So we're really excited to have that in place.
Got a question?
Yeah.
Is there a gauge at the site where they're observing?
What sort of gauge?
A flow gauge. How much?
There's
because if you're using the gauges upstream, there could be diversions.
There's gauges all the way down the creek. There's a number of
multiple
gauges.
And what might be important is also the flow after the scales because.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
To attract them, to get
Yeah,
them.
so it has to be all the way.
Yeah.
So it's.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
And when these are so that's getting monitored, the amount of water that's actually getting down, the amount that's released and the amount that's going down. So that's the big thing, so we can expect to be able to manage the creek better moving forward.
That's cool.
Yep. We were disappointed that we had such a small run after we put the fish ladder in on the little check dam, but there's all sorts of different reasons why things might have happened. There's a lot of factors that go into whether salmon are coming up or not, so we'll figure it out moving into the future. Okay, nothing on the Yellow Habitat Conservancy long-range calendar. So we know we have one agenda item we just determined tonight.
Yes, and then wanted to do a little farewell to Lindsay as well.
Yeah.
Do a little farewell to you. Farewell. So long, but not goodbye. Short.
Yes, thanks for your time.
I probably won't have probably because it's not totally needed. I was gonna give you guys a preliminary acquisition report for that Nishikawa property that I talked to you guys about before, that the Solano Land Trust submitted the grant application for. I don't know, I don't know if I will have that done, and then also that would mean I would need or maybe I could do a little, well, it's kind of past the point of doing, it would be more of it's kind of past the point of doing just, hey, do you want to do this, because they already submitted the grant application. But I would want the acquisition subcommittee to kind of just go look at it. I don't know if we'll have time to do all that, so chances are I'm probably gonna punt on that, so anyway, but that's still on my list, because I know we're gonna have to do it pretty soon, because I need to go to city council to ask for the matching funds if they get the grant. Anyway, that was a long-winded way of saying I'm probably not doing Nishikawa.
I don't know if I want to spend a lot of time on all the items that won't be on the agenda next month.
Yeah, okay, fine. I know that Christina possibly had something.
So efficient, I love it. Yeah, well, yeah, so something to propose to look at maybe in September or October is a bill that's currently in the legislature that I think would have a direct impact on our work when it comes to ag land conservation easements. So it's only to the Assembly Appropriation Committee right now, hasn't even gone into the Senate. But I was just double checking on ChatGPT and the legislative calendar, like they have to make all their final proposals in September. So maybe in September or October would make most sense for this item I was thinking we could discuss, which is Assembly Bill 524, I believe. Yeah, 524, and I printed a copy of it if you guys want to check it out. But in summary, it's creating a new land access fund with the state. They're proposing to create this and amending current statutes so that there's a new program that the Department of Conservation would offer for entities such as the City of Davis and others that, you know, propose easements to create an option for leases for socially disadvantaged, limited resource farmers to access that farmland, which typically there's a lot of barriers for that. Happy to provide more information on what those are if you're not familiar with the topic. But this is a huge, huge, huge issue at the state level right now, and there's several agencies that are behind this work. There's a huge amount of support for this bill. There are like 150 organizations that signed on for support. It's being led by the Community Alliance for Family Farmers, which is very influential in the state if you're not familiar. But in addition to that, there is a joint task force, the Land Equity Task Force, that's being led by the state and has been for at least 1.5 years now, and they're one of the drivers behind this as well. So I'd be surprised if it didn't pass the legislature, or, you know, something could happen, but I think it's, someone mentioned earlier, not being reactive, but proactive. So I think this is something we should consider as a commission in terms of if it does pass in September, how we might reconsider our strategic plan, which just needs to be renewed after 2030, how that might play into the general plan policies and things like that looking forward.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good.
The only other possibilities, I mean, again, I'm not for sure.
More items that aren't gonna be on the agenda?
Well, maybe. Usually I do a budget discussion, but a lot of times I don't get all the information I need by the beginning of June. So, I'm not sure, so that might also wait until the fall, because I usually try to do it in June if I can get the information. And then I'm also, you know, the draft panels, I'm still waiting for the draft panels for the North Davis, upland habitat area. You know, there's like 9 panels that I've been working with the Friends of North Davis Ponds on. You guys haven't seen them yet. Those might be ready, so that's another might. But maybe we may just focus on Wild Horse and Lindsay. So I don't know. I'll have to, we'll see. I'll have to, you know, we can chat.
Yeah, sounds good.
Are there any other ones that people can think of?
I would like to know a little more about the village farm proposal. Is it different than the one we almost looked at and didn't look at for some reason, or
It's in
that
flux.
the same
It's in
one?
flux.
It's still moving around.
Yeah,
Okay.
there isn't really.
Because we got a bunch of information,
Yeah.
I kind of looked at that, and then it just.
It's changing
disappeared.
on a daily
Okay,
basis.
all right, okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, that was April and a lot has happened since then.
Yeah, so it was not baked yet then?
No,
Okay.
yeah, no, but it's still moving along.
Yes.
That's why I'll let, as soon as I get a better idea about like, okay, am I gonna have to try to organize a July meeting? I know that's not ideal for everybody, an August meeting, but I'm gonna have to make my best attempt at it, cause I don't, you know.
And that would be at the date that it would be?
Maybe not.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Because
saying, I
then
might have to send you guys all like
all
a
dates are
doodle
off
folder
then.
or something
Okay.
to figure out when I can get the most people available for a meeting, when I can get a room
Okay,
with an owl, all of that.
okay.
So yeah, probably will not be the first Monday.
Well,
We'll see.
all right.
Okay, With that, I think we can adjourn.
Wow, it's exactly 8:30.
All right?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for pioneering this new city council process.
I know. No, but I thought there was a